Alright, hi, welcome to SAS XF. This is not X15. I made a blunder. I committed a blunder. Yeah, in hex after 9 comes A, not 10. So for the past 5 videos, I've been effing it up. So this is SAS XF. I was wondering how did I get to 1.4? Like 1.4 is so far away. But yeah, whatever. So this one's going to be about. I've been lately wondering about the nature of creativity. Just what makes something creative. What gives the attribute of being creative to. Yeah, just what makes something creative. So that got me thinking about constraints, freedom, that sort of stuff. If you come from an engineering perspective, degrees of freedom, having constraints to your solution, that sort of stuff is pretty usual. But then how do you frame that in the context of just life? So creativity is a fairly abstract concept. How do you even start to formalize it? So that got me thinking. There are a lot of adages that go around creativity, like laziness, being lazy, being bored is sort of a source of creativity, wanting to solve problems. But then, what if you're too smart? What if everything is just boring? Everything is too easy. That way, you're not smart enough to create harder problems or find harder problems. So that got me thinking about the idea of having, say, mental games when you're like standing in a line, or just thinking about something. So that idea of being able to insert your own constraints into whatever you're thinking, into whatever you're doing, into just aspects of your life to make it more interesting to solve problems concerning that area, or navigating your way around obstacles you've placed, creating your own games, those sort of constraints, that sort of stuff. I started thinking along those lines, and that actually got me into this whole chain of creating a whole bunch of thought experiments. So, for the past week, I haven't posted in a week. I've been thinking. Serendipity. Serendipity is a pretty hard thing to come by. Right now, I'm feeling serendipitous, but then for the past week, I've been experiencing a sort of block. Uh, so yeah, I'm back at it again. So I was thinking, uh, creativity, serendipity, all these abstract things that make thinking or make the act of cognition sort of appealing. This is what gives the appealing aspect to thinking, to cognition, to the clicks that happen in your mind. Uh, the thought cycles. So how do you induce them? Uh, First of all, if you got a mind that likes solving problems, then you're soon going to get too smart for the usual world. That will happen one time. The average world for you is going to be just very boring, and that is when what I'm saying right now is going to come to use. That's when this is going to be of use. You'll have to learn to create your own games. You'll have to start creating your own games. Yeah, everything gets boring at one point if you're like a if you read too much, if you solve a lot of problems. And I don't mean problems in the conventional sense. If you say you have a lot of thought experiments, you hear a lot of things, you think at different scales, at larger scales, or at even the smaller scales, or you wonder why stuff happens. If you ask that why enough, you're going to hit a whole bunch of plateaus. So this video is about how to get out of those sort of plateaus. How do you actually begin to shake off the rust, so to say, uh, to dust off the rust, so to say. So what's worked for me, even before uh, trying to say come up with games and stuff right away, is sort of being very rigorous, with whatever you've been doing. So usually what happens is when you get used to your environment, when stuff gets boring, you're there's still some optimization left, or still some thought left in the minor observations that you missed out. A lot of stuff you pick on intuitively. You do get into acting a certain way due to some optimizations that you noticed, but then there are some auxiliary habits that you pick up, that you cannot attribute, that you cannot allocate to a certain decision. So finding out why you're doing something in that context is that one question is sort of interesting. That helps you sort of think, and then you should get into metacognition, so thinking as to why you are really thinking that way. That sort of opens up a whole bunch of things. So that sort of clarifies your context for further stuff, for what you should do next. And now you can sort of start, because your stuff is boring right now. You have a little too much intellectual landscape to play around with, that you don't see any obstacles. You have a lot of tooling around you that you don't see any obstacles. So what you do next is start introducing constraints, start introducing interesting random constraints over the course of I don't know, a few iterations. So what I've been doing recently is I'm getting into some basic fabrication and stuff. So some thinking about how I could use the basic stationery, or how I could use basic materials that are around me in different ways, or what I could do with them. So origami is something that I could get into. I went to this DIY store and bought a whole bunch of dog leashes to get into knot theory. So I've been trying to create my own pulley systems, so that I can open my door from far away without having to get up. So that sort of stuff is also there. You could try imagining how you would like to, say, represent different sort of energies. So I mean, I got rubber bands for elastic potential energy, I got springs, but then how do you even source them? You're not directly buying springs. So ballpoint pens are a nice source of springs. Rubber bands also, you get different kinds of rubber bands, how they behave under different circumstances, how you could construct or combine them, how you could, I don't know, I thought of creating strong structures, but then I don't want to fabricate the structures from axioms that were built to fabricate with the intent of fabrication. I want to use what is around me. So I thought I could create tetrahedrons with pencils, with new pencils. And how do you actually start joining them? So yeah, creating joints from basic stationery. So that's where erasers could come in. How do I sort of manage the angles and stuff? So that got me thinking into different sorts of physical realizations about the world. So there's this one funny realization that I cannot actually say right now. Yeah, that's just too funny for YouTube. I mean, YouTube will not be able to take it. But yeah, so these sort of things. I mean, how do you I don't know, engineer your own pendulum, different sort of pendulum? It's ultimately simple harmonic motion, but then how many different ways of simple harmonic motion can you induce, and how can you have organized randomness or organized chaos into it? So sort of secondary and tertiary pendulums that swing from a primary arm, that could be a thing. How do you model it overall? How do you sort of start getting into computationally simulating it? Slowly adding in these constraints and working with actual matter, actual constraints of let's say your resources being limited, or your resources, you not just being able to buy a spring but then have to understand where to extract a spring from. That sort of stuff, that has been helping me feel creative. So that feeling of creativity came in from the idea of constraints. I mean, all our life, it's funny, we chase freedom, we chase different sorts of freedom: temporal freedom, financial freedom, intellectual freedom is also something we chase, but then constraints are something we actively avoid. But then what I noticed is the idea of including more constraints, or engineering constraints, and engineering interesting constraints, or framing existing constraints in an existing way, uh, and then approaching the problem sort of incentivized me more to solve the problem, rather than just say, I mean, I could get a pendulum, I could just buy a pendulum. I know what a normal pendulum is. I could just buy stuff right away for that. I could fabricate stuff. I know how to create joints. I mean, so yeah, I could just engineer joints. But then, what if I had constraints? What if I had, let's say, if I wanted the stickiness, or what if I wanted to engineer a joint without any adhesive, without any explicit adhesive? How I would sort of hold that? How I could say, I don't know, simulate stronger structures with just paper? What sort of folds would I need? Experiment with different sort of folds. I got a kitchen scale to test the strength of my structures, so that is also there. Yeah, I mean, I count my macros, so I've been using my kitchen scale to sort of differentiate between different masses, to sort of structurally verify how strong something is. So you could fold papers in different ways. You could have levers, you could have planks and stuff, and you could actually start experimenting. So having your own minor experiments and thought experiments are a good time killer. But then actually starting to have your own toolkits and labs and experiments, physical experiments, is something that's going to help with keeping your mind busy. Yeah. I also usually find it pretty odd that people think of relaxation in a pretty contrary way. I mean, pretty contrarian way as to how I think about it. I mean, relaxation for a lot of people, the average human probably is about doing less, is about quote unquote relaxing. But then I am probably the most lost, the most relaxed when I am doing something without thinking too much about it, for the sake of itself, without thinking about the results, the incentives for it, why I should get into it, why I shouldn't get into it, is it worth doing? If I stop asking those questions, is when I truly relax. So I mean, that's usually very difficult to achieve. So another nice thing is, yeah, try and find different sort of observations. So cloud watching is another hobby that I've picked up lately. So I put in some good music and I watch the clouds. I try and observe patterns. If you can get this trippy experience without getting high. So if you without getting high via conventional means, if you sort of happen to position yourself in such a way that the clouds are moving away from you, and you sort of stare at them moving away from you, it does get trippy. So that is what I've noticed today in my today's cloud watching session. Every cloud watching session, I see something new. They're just clouds. They're just effing clouds, just normal clouds. But then still, they're different all the time, and they sort of give me sort of a different insight about stuff around me. I mean, these sort of observations. Yeah. So cognitively speaking, introducing your own constraints. So when I'm watching clouds, I try and limit myself as to in different ways as to what I'll be thinking in that moment, or at what angle am I looking, or what am I exactly looking for. So a cloud can represent anything that you want, but then let's say if you introduce the constraint of only finding animals, or let's say you introduce the constraint of only looking for certain letters or numbers, or let's say I don't know, you want to find collinear clouds, collinear cloud centroids, that sort of stuff, or you want to start guessing the weather. So you define your own objective in that moment, and with that focus you just start observing. So you specifically define a constraint of let's say a particular task that you want to achieve. Let's say I want to anticipate the weather for the next 2 or 3 hours by just watching the clouds, and then I look around with a certain sense of what the clouds are doing. That kind of thinking, that kind of problem solving is fairly interesting. So constraints is where it's at. Freedom, I mean, degrees of freedom, they probably might even make a problem boring for you. So if something is too boring, if something is actually too boring, rather than trying to search for more intellectual freedom or more temporal freedom, or just in general more financial freedom, uh, try to introduce interesting constraints that will actually help you think in different ways and induce creativity. So yeah, I think that's it for today. This was SaaSXF, freedom, constraints, and creativity. The point is, constraints are not that bad. Try engineering your own. If I'm ever bored during, yeah, I mean, when I'm in waiting, when I'm waiting in lines, or I'm I don't know, just doing normal stuff that bores you, I start thinking with more constraints, instead of how I could just completely eliminate this problem, how I could make this problem harder is what I start thinking about. And it usually leads to more interesting solutions and more interesting realizations that I can further apply to other problems. So that has been something of interest lately. Yeah, this was the Bit-Mage. This is where I philosophically and cognitively ramble. If you want to get into how I talk about CS, how I'm philosophically into CS, computer science, do check out thebitmage.com. This was Cornware Industries. Thanks for tuning in. SaaSXF again, not SaaSX15. So I messed it all up. You're going to see one more X14, 13, 12, 11 sometime. I'm probably not going to change the thumbnails. Let's see if someone points it out in the comments of those videos sometime. They'll probably not. But yeah. That whatever that is, I mean the mistakes I make, yeah, let's keep them alive. Let's keep them on record so that people see how bad I am. That's the point. Yeah, thanks for tuning in again. This was the Bit-Mage.